Alright everyone, welcome back to the Morphology series. I wanted to continue on with structures of internal anatomy for insects. So today I want to talk about the digestive tract of insects and how that forms and how it functions. So we have a cross section here, a drawing of a cross section of an insect, and the gut can be divided, the gut or the digestive tract, it's usually in entomology just referred to as the gut, can be divided into three sections. You have the first section, this first brown section that covers the head and the thorax, and this is the foregut. And this is sometimes referred to as the stomodium. This blue section is called the midgut. This is where digestion actually occurs. And this is sometimes called the mesenteron. These are the old names for them. And then this final brown part is the hindgut. And this is sometimes called the proctodium. So most modern texts use the first names, the foregut, midgut, and hindgut. But if you read some of the older texts, like the Snodgrass texts and stuff, they use the older names. So the reason that the foregut and hindgut are in brown and the midgut is in blue is that the foregut and hindgut have something in common with the external body wall, and it's that these are chitinous and frequently sclerotized layers. So the interior portions of the mouth and the throat through the thorax, and then the exterior, not exterior, but the posterior portions of the hindgut are chitinous and sclerotized, whereas the midgut is not, because the midgut is where the digestion actually occurs, and so this is just exposed columnar cells, a cellular epithelium. So that is why the foregut and hindgut are in brown, whereas the midgut is in blue. So how this digestive tract works, obviously food comes in the mouth. So this is the mouth here. This, from the cross section, this would be like the labium. And then up here, this would be the labrum. So the mouth parts are cut in half. You have the preoral cavity here, followed closely by the pharynx. And this is kind of the beginning of the throat, and then the esophagus after that. The pharynx is in the mouth, and the esophagus forms kind of a throat, and that immediately opens up into the crop. So the crop is where food can be stored before digestion, and in some insects this can be a very large amount of food. So like with honeybees, they can store an enormous amount of honey into this area, or this is also where they store the nectar from flowers in order to take it back to the hive. So they're not, sometimes honey is called bee vomit. It's not really vomit because it's never actually making its way to the digestive area of the stomach. It's actually just being kind of held in a sac in their throat. In other insects, like in some butterflies, instead of an enlarged crop like this, what they will have is a sac to the side of the esophagus called a diverticulum, and this is where they can store extra food. Below the crop here that exits into the mouth, these are the salivary glands. And these can be very, very large in some insects. These salivary glands dump into the mouth behind the hypopharynx, and this area here is called the salivarium because of that. So food comes through the preoral cavity, through the pharynx, down the esophagus, into the crop or into the diverticulum, and when it's ready to be digested, it passes through a sphincter muscle into what is called the proventriculus. So this area here is called the proventriculus. And this area is kind of like a gizzard in birds, and it is used in some insects, it's hyperdeveloped and it's used to grind or kind of like pre-chew some food before digestion. It's frequently covered in sclerotized ridges or teeth, or any sort of grinding sharp structure. This is particularly large in Orthoptera, so like the grasshoppers and crickets, things that are feeding on a lot of leafy material will frequently have a very large proventriculus. And this is used to kind of help digestion by macerating the food more. And then behind that will be another sphincter to prevent backflow of food out of the midgut. So now we're entering into the mesenteron or the midgut in blue here. And this is where all of the digestion occurs. So the mesenteron has exposed columnar cells, which will absorb nutrients. And the columnar cells will be, exposed semi-rectangular cells perched on a basement membrane. So you'll have cells here, and you'll have the basement membrane down here. And the columnar cells will have little fingers, which increases surface area, and this is where nutrients will come in. So that's what these blue rectangles are. These are the columnar cells. And if we zoom in here, how this works is you have food coming in, but it's protected by this membrane here. So there's a membrane that is between the columnar cells here and the food, which will come in this way. So you have this kind of membrane here called the peristrophic membrane, and this membrane helps prevent abrasion. So this sort of digestive tract is specifically for insects that are actually chewing food, not for insects that are like blood feeders or sap feeders. This is for insects that are actually either predaceous or chewing up leafy greens, things like that. So they will have this membrane, the peristrophic membrane, which will prevent abrasion of these very delicate columnar cells that form the midgut. And this is because these columnar cells, this layer of columnar cells, these epithelial cells, are only one cell thick. So it's very easy to damage them. So they'll have this matrix, this peristrophic matrix, or this peristrophic membrane that exists between the food and the actual absorption points. So as digestion occurs, the food moves in, and nutrients are kind of swirled around between an endoperistrophic space, which is in here, and an epiperistrophic space, which is out here, the outside of the membrane. There's like kind of a back current, which will take food and nutrients into these sacs on the sides of the midgut called the cecum. It's kind of a weird word. These are called gastric ceca, or the gastric cecum, and these pockets are because food will flow in there and kind of swirl around, and it gives more time and more surface area for digestion, so more nutrients can be absorbed from the food that they do eat. So food continues out through the pyloric sphincter. This is called there will be a thickening between the midgut and the hindgut called the pylorus, and this is where the pyloric sphincter is. And attached to that pyloric sphincter are, at the same point, not really part of the digestive tract, but there'll be these tube filaments floating around in the hemocoel, which is where all the blood is, called the Malpighian tubules. And these are for cleaning the blood. They kind of work as a mixture between like the liver and the kidneys, and they float around in the blood, and they scrub out toxins and waste products, and then they dump it into the intestine, or in this case the hindgut, along with the food. And now we're into the hindgut, which is also sclerotized, like the body wall, and this is where you'll have the ileum. This is the ileum and the rectum, and there are some rectal glands in here which will absorb excess water and bring it back into the blood. And then you have the anus on the end, and this is where the waste is produced. The waste in insects, you can't really see that, but waste in insects is usually called frass. So when you hear entomologists talking about insect waste, they'll usually say that there's frass. So frass can be signs of insect infestations, or frass pellets are coming out of trees. What they're talking about is the fecal waste products of insects, specifically with plant feeders. This frass is a mixture of waste products and just like an enormous amount of plant fiber, or sawdust if it's like a wood feeder. So this is the basic structure of a chewing insect. What you can also have, this is more like a sucking insect. This is the digestive tract of a butterfly. And we'll zoom in here. So on top here you have the head, and these things on the side are the antennae. So butterflies are, they feed on nectar, so they're sucking insects. And frequently with sucking insects, they have very well-developed salivary glands. They have to produce a lot of saliva to keep everything working. And they have these enormous salivary glands that are on the periphery of the digestive tract. So then here you have the foregut. And below that, you have the crop or the diverticulum. So in butterflies here, this area here would be the diverticulum. And then that goes into the midgut. So you have a sphincter muscle here, and below that you have the midgut. So this is the midgut. And what you're seeing here, these rings, I believe in this drawing, are supposed to represent concentric rings of muscle that exist around the digestive tract, and these help push food to the posterior of the digestive tract. So you'll get kind of a peristalsis wave going through. Concentric muscles will squeeze in tandem, one after the other, and you'll get a coordinated flow of food through the digestive tract. Then you have the pylorus here, the pyloric sphincter with the Malpighian tubules attached. These are the Malpighian tubules used to clean blood. And they dumped their waste products on top of the food waste and into the ileum of the hindgut. This is the ileum. And then this is the rectum and the anus. So with an insect, if you were to do a dissection of an insect, the vast majority of the internal space of an insect, because remember, like butterfly bodies are very thin, they have big wings, but their bodies are very thin. The vast majority of the internal space is taken up by the digestive tract. And this is also true of like mammals and humans. If you think about how much of your torso space is actually taken up by your entire digestive tract, it's actually the majority of it. Your digestive tract and lungs, basically. So this is a brief introduction to the insect digestive system. We'll probably come back and talk about this some more when we talk about more of the glands and digestive process, but this will be just the first introduction. So I'll see you guys later. Thanks.